In a world brimming with complexity, few creatures embody harmony like the honeybee. With tireless precision, she dances from bloom to bloom, each motion guided by millennia upon millennia of instinct, each act in service to the whole. And then there are the beekeepers, watchful stewards of this ancient symbiosis. Part agri-scientist, part poet, they move along their hives with the efficiency of Moe, Larry, and Curly, tending to the bees' needs as best they can comprehend, and with the infrequency of a waterfall in the Sahara, sometimes running off, flapping and flailing like a penguin on a hot sidewalk. This is their journey.
Welcome to Bee Love Beekeeping, presented by our great friends over at Mann Lake. By the way, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to and follow the show, tell your friends about it, and click on over to beelovebeekeeping.com to sign up for our free newsletter. Today's guest is a really fun and super knowledgeable beekeeper from Ohio. We'll be discussing a range of topics, everything from apitherapy, including a how-to on bee venom therapy, propolis, swarm removals, and drone races. Yes, drone races. I very much appreciate you putting up with my voice today. I promise you won't catch anything from listening. We could have waited a few days until it cleared up, but hey, we promised a new episode every Thursday, and we deliver a new episode every Thursday. So, here we go. I'd like to warm welcome to our very special guest today, Emily Mueller. How are you today, Emily?
Good. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
We have so much to talk about. And so I'm going to just forget all the pleasantries and talking about the weather and just jump into it. And we could start anywhere, but I was interested that you do a lot of education things like in schools. Can you tell us a little bit about that first off?
Yeah, so my heart was with with teaching young children, because I feel like if you start with people, with children especially at a young age, then they'll grow up with less fear of certain insects, and especially flying insects that sting. And so kind of bringing honeybees to the school rooms and walking through the process and allowing them to see them up close and learn about how they only sting if they're threatened, and the comparison of honeybees versus yellow jackets, which are, the ones that go after your pop or at the trash can at the fair. So just kind of explaining all those differences to kids so that they are fully aware of it. One of my favorite things to do, though, is a drone race. Have you ever heard of a drone race?
No, tell us about it.
So what you do is you take, if you live within a 2-mile radius of the location that you're teaching at, so for my local school district, I can go to one of my hives and collect a handful of drones, and I take them to the school, I do the presentation, and then I split the kids into groups, and I allow them to pick a color from my queen marking pens. We mark one of the drones, and then the teacher and the children go outside, and I go home because I'm so close to the location, and I text the teacher and I say, release the drones, and they release the drones, and I video record the front of the hive, and the first drone to make it back is the winner for the end of the program.
And they just automatically go straight back to the hive?
Most of them do, yeah, typically.
I didn't know drones were that smart.
Yeah, it's just really neat because they are out foraging, so they know where, what hive they're coming from. Now drones can hop hives, but for the most part, they return.
Sure. Oh, I bet the kids love that.
They do. Yeah, I love it. I love watching that happen, just being amazed every time, like, here they come.
If you're, say, half a mile away, about how long does it take?
Oh, minutes, if that. Like, that's about how far I am from the local school, is about a half mile. And they're there within 5 minutes at the most. I would say probably 1 to 2 minutes they're back.
That's what I would have guessed. Oh, that is so fun.
Yeah, yep.
Well, it takes the creativity to get the kids' attention, so that's fantastic. Then are they just full of questions after that?
It depends on the age. Older children, not so much. Maybe they'll ask a couple questions. Younger children, they usually tell me about every time they've ever been stung. And so, like, I have a question. I was stung one time, I'm like, that's not a question. Let's answer a question.
One of my things that I'm just most interested in is everything apitherapy. And I know you do a little bit of it. Can you tell us what background you have, what you do with it?
Okay, so I am a certified master herbalist and in medicine. And so I went to school for integrative health sciences. I just completed my master's last semester, and I just started my doctorate as well in the same field, integrative health sciences. And prior to that, I had done just a lot of self-taught education about herbs and bee products in general. And I because I teach a lot of classes, and I didn't want to offer the same basic classes that everybody is teaching. And so I started to learn more about apitherapy, especially, how honey it can be healing, how pollen can be healing. And I tell people those things in the markets when I used to sell in the markets, like, oh, vitamin B, there's an excessive amount in pollen where it's meeting your nutritional needs, and, things like that, just to kind of spread education and awareness about it. But then I realized I could actually teach a class. So I started teaching a class, and a lot of people wanted to know more about bee venom. I have personally been stinging myself and my husband for probably close to 10 years. He has scoliosis, and I had symptoms of Lyme disease, as well as just other issues. Anything that hurts, I'm willing to sting it. And so we have personally used it in our family for quite some time, but I started to expand into helping other people as well. So anybody that is willing to ask and to sign a waiver to come to my house, I'm willing to help them with bee venom therapy. But propolis is amazing. I learned firsthand how healing propolis can be for oral issues. So cavities, there's a lot of research out there showing that it can help stop and reverse cavities, because strep is the leading cause of cavities in the teeth, and the antibacterial, antifungal, antimicrobial benefits of propolis actually stop and reverse the cavities that are being formed in the mouth. Now, you can't repair the tooth if there is damage, like holes in the teeth, but you can use propolis to stop teeth pain and bacteria and all sorts of amazing things with dealing with mouth issues.
Emily, you might want to look up, about 6 months ago, I had Dr. Stefan Stangachu on. And do you know who he is?
I've heard of his name. I've seen pictures of him, but I haven't been able, his name keeps coming up in my life, so I know I gotta find him.
A lot of people know him as the world's leading authority on everything apitherapy. And I know you and I say it different, and that's okay. And he lives in Romania. He's a doctor over there. And back in December, in fact, we made it a 3-part episode of everything apitherapy. And it was absolutely fascinating. And people, when they hear the term, they often just think of bee stings or bee venom therapy. And it's so much more to that. In fact, last fall, for the first time, we made some propolis tincture. And you can tell I've got a little bug right now. And I've been 2 or 3 times a day gargling with this propolis tincture. And I'm not going to say it tastes great. It's kind of nasty. But this isn't turning into things that the people I got it from ended up with. And I thought that was pretty cool. I also had a little sore in my mouth at the same time, a little canker sore, and didn't even think about it. And it went away. And it just happened to be while I was using this propolis tincture. So
Yep.
there's some amazing stuff there.
It really is absolutely phenomenal and very healing to the body. And you can use it on cavities, you can use it on ulcers, you can use it. One of the research articles I cite in a presentation I give is on how it actually helps with HSV 1 and 2. So the herpes simplex virus, which can cause mouth cold sores and things like that. It's really awesome stuff.
Okay, I want to ask you a couple more things about bee venom therapy
Sure.
before we move on. And I do want to preface this with, obviously, Lawyers out there, we're not giving medical advice. It is always a good idea to have an EpiPen on hand if you're doing anything like this, or frankly, even if you're not, because as a beekeeper, you're more likely to get stung. And if you're going to try something like bee sting therapy, work into it very, very slowly. That's one of the things that Dr. Stangachu talked about a lot, is you start with a little bit, see how you react, a little bit more and a little bit more, and work up to it, to be very, very careful with this. So we don't want people to just go into it willy-nilly like, oh, I've got such and such, and Emily and Eric said I should just sting myself 10 times over here. And no, let's be a lot more careful than that. Okay, now that the legal jargon's over, Emily, tell me how you got started with it. You mentioned about 10 years ago, and was it for your husband first?
Actually, I've thought really hard about this, and I can't remember what made me start thinking about it. I don't know if it was somebody I've heard, because I was a county inspector for a few years, and I think just networking with beekeepers and them telling me, oh, like my grandpa used to do it for his joints and arthritis, and I think that's kind of where it started. And then I broke my foot. I was supposed to run a 5K. So I thought, hey, I'm going to sting my foot and see what happens. And it healed very quickly, much faster than what I was, they told me that it would. They even asked me, like, what did you do different? And I said, to be honest, I was stinging my foot. Of course, they think I'm crazy. Then my husband had a lot of back pain, and I told him, like, hey, if it's working for me, I think that this would also be beneficial for him. Now, it's not going to do, we're not reversing things like scoliosis, but he does find relief in his joints, especially through the back pain he has when I do Venom treatment on his back, and especially his hips. His hips hurt pretty often, and so we will just, sting certain areas related to those. Like you said, this wasn't a you just jump in and start doing multiple stings. There's a whole protocol there. It's a very slow process. You want to first make sure that you're not going to have a reaction, but always know you can have a reaction later on, even though you haven't had one prior. So it is it's not just a willy-nilly kind of thing. You really need to know what you're doing.
Okay, and how has it worked for you?
I almost died actually a few years ago. They still don't know what it caused, what happened, but my body broke out in these strange hives, and I had a lot of nerve die off in my right foot. I was in excruciating pain. It was horrible. And then I got sepsis, and none of it made sense. I'm a very holistic, very natural person, and so it was very hard for me. I was trying all the natural things to overcome it, and then I ended up in the ER, obviously, and they tried all these different antibiotics to try to help. They used some of the strongest, is all I remember. I couldn't tell you all of them, except one of them was doxycycline. And I did respond very well to doxycycline, which is typically used for Lyme. They did do I think it's called a blot test, to see if I would test positive for Lyme. And at the time I was not. I've never tested positive for Lyme. However, that's kind of one of the things that you find when you do research, is that you may never actually test positive on certain testing methods that they use. However, after two things that I noticed, now I went through this 2 different times, a year apart, and still have no idea why. But when these symptoms arose, I was not being stung. I'm stung often because I used to do cutouts, so cutting bees out of houses, and then I'm just a very irresponsible beekeeper who doesn't always wear a suit. And so I'm stung pretty often. And these both time frames that this happened to me were winter or very, very early spring prior to getting stung. I never have these symptoms during the summer when I'm stung regularly. And so I started learning more about how there's a potential ability for venom in vitro studies to break down bacteria. Well, Lyme disease is a bacteria, and so it can cause cell lysis, where it puts holes in the bacteria and causes the bacteria to collapse. And so that is why I started stinging myself. I sting down my spine 5 times, 3 days a week. And it hasn't always been that steady, but usually through the summer I try to keep up with it. And I'm trying to find a way to have hives on my porch through the winter so that I can maintain those stings through the winter as well, so that I can avoid any future issues like I had come across. But that's what I use it for is potential Lyme issues, as well as severe joint pain that I have just throughout, because after that sepsis issue and the nerve die off, I had a lot of pain.
And if you can't figure out your own bees for the winter, there are beekeepers out there that you can buy them from specifically for this, and they overnight them to you, and it works really well.
Yeah, Trish Thompson, is it Thompson, I think, from Pollen Peddlers. I just got to meet her recently. I talked to her for quite some time. But yes, she does ship. She's in North Carolina. And so when the weather is okay for them to ship, they can ship them to you. And they are a great business. I'm sure there's probably others, but that's the one that I'm very well aware of.
Yeah, there are a few others. I don't know all of them. I don't endorse one over another or anything like that. Just one more thing on this topic before we move on. If somebody wants to try this the first time themselves, as someone who has done quite a bit of this, I can tell you it is not an easy thing to sting yourself the very first time. It's like it's like everything in your DNA is saying, do not do this. We are supposed to run from stinging things. And you take a bee with these little, what do you call the little tweezer thingers you use?
The reverse tweezers.
Yeah. And you take these and you figure out how to catch a bee, and you hold it with this, and you decide where you need it. And doing that for the very first time is not easy. There just is a mental thing for most of us that I find fascinating in myself. I'm like, why? This shouldn't be so hard. I've been stung a million times. But doing it to yourself is. Any advice?
I would say that if I could go back and if I had to do, I mean, there's opinions I would give for people who aren't beekeepers versus who are beekeepers, and but the biggest thing I would say is have somebody else sting you first, so that you can kind of feel that pain and go through the process. I encourage people to ice it first, because that does reduce the burning sensation that you typically get for a while.
Quick break to discuss what just might be on your mind right now. Come on, admit it. You're imagining the upcoming honey harvest. Because no matter where you live in the world, it's either here now or it will be in the near future. And Mann Lake is making it so easy to plan for. Click on over to Mann Lake's website for an amazing selection of extractors, filters, bottling supplies, uncapping knives, supplies for comb honey, everything, and I mean everything you'll need. But if you aren't there quite yet, and the honey flow is right around the corner, make sure you have extra supers on hand. You never can have too many or be too prepared. And right now, Mann Lake is offering podcast listeners $10 off your next order. Just enter code MLBLOVE10 at checkout. That's manlakeltd.com, discount code MLBLOVE10.
It will hurt if you use your appendages that they're being stung on. Like if you're using your feet, you're going to swell more, so I always encourage people to do it in the evening and then put their feet up if they're doing their legs or towards their feet area. But as far as it really is, it is hard to force yourself to sting yourself, because you know that it's going to, it isn't comfortable, it is a little bit painful. I don't know, you get used to it, you really do. I had to do Lovenox injections when I was pregnant, and it was very similar, where I didn't want to do it, and then 9 months later, I'm like, I can hit my stomach anytime, no big deal. It takes time, and you are completely normal, even if you have bees and you've been getting stung and you're still nervous to do it.
And how long do people need to leave the stinger in to get the full venom effect? That's one thing some people don't know. You don't just scrape the stinger out immediately like when you get stung out in the field.
It's recommended 15 minutes, but I just kind of watch and see when it's done pulsating. Once it's done pulsating, I'm okay with pulling them out. I would say at least a good 7 to 10 minutes, you're pretty good. You have most of the dose at least, and you can, if you're trying to hurry along. Because I have people who they have busy schedules and they're just stopping here as quick as they can, because they're coming 3 days a week sometimes. And so we will sting them, and then I only have them hang out for about 10 minutes, and then we pull the stinger out. I have a couple people who are beekeepers and they're comfortable with pulling the stingers out themselves. So I just sting them in the area, and then they get in their car and they leave.
And hopefully don't have a reaction.
It's never a new patient, and I wouldn't say patient. It's never a new client. It's never somebody that I haven't gone through the whole experience with them, sat and watched them multiple times.
Very smart. Back to propolis. I noticed on your website you have a propolis mineral paste. What is that and what does it do?
I had let's see, like the whole story. So I had to have a CT scan when I was pregnant because they thought I had a brain bleed. And when I went through that, it would have been the development time for my child I was pregnant with to have the teeth development happening. Well, once he was born, it was about, I don't, when the teeth start coming in, the front teeth, I couldn't tell you right off the bat. But by 18 months, he had some major issues with his forefront teeth. And we couldn't figure out what the cause was. And so we believe it was likely exposure to the scan that caused issues for just his baby teeth. And so the dentist wanted to do surgery and they wanted to put him under to extract all 4 of those teeth. And I did as much research as I could because as a mom with young children, I didn't want to put him under. And I found out that you can do something called remineralizing your teeth. So you are putting different products, most of them like a clay, aloe, powder, different things created that will help with that process. In addition to propolis has these benefits as well. And so it made sense to me to look up and research all of the ingredients that would be beneficial to remineralizing your teeth and then add propolis to it. And so that's what I did. And we were actually able to buy about 2.5 years. He was 4.5 when we finally did do the surgery. So it didn't, like I mentioned before, it doesn't repair the damage there, but it will slow bacteria growth and it will stop certain bacteria from forming and causing further decay to the teeth. I feel very blessed that that was something that happened for us. And a friend of mine reached out and said, hey, my daughter has a cavity in her molar. And she, we tried to take her to the dentist and she lost her mind. And so they recommended putting her under. What was your experience? So I gave her some of it and the cavity disappeared after about 6 weeks, like completely gone. And they did not actually ever have to do anything further with the tooth. I still see that little girl pretty often and she never had to have anything done to that tooth after that. And so it kind of blew my mind to know that was a possibility. And I started selling it online. I've sold over, 6,000 jars of it at this point. I have a lot of repeat customers and a lot of people who reach out to me and say, hey, this stopped my tooth pain, this stopped this issue or that issue, or I was able to use it for X, Y, or Z. It's really awesome. The base is just bentonite clay and then it has aloe powder in it as well as propolis. I still see that little girl after her mom had used that and she's never ever had to have anything done to that tooth further and she no longer has the cavity in the tooth.
That is very cool. What is everybody else using it for? Like, what would I buy it for? For oral health or something else?
Some people use it just to apply like for brushing, for sensitivity, for gingivitis, but most people are purchasing it for remineralizing teeth. And then I market it towards children specifically because a lot of parents don't want to put their children under or take a medical route unless absolutely necessary. And so this is a way to kind of buy time until they're a little bit older and can have something further done. I would never encourage a parent to only use this, still see the dentist, still ask their opinion, still have them watch it, still do x-rays because you can get an abscess still. That's always a possibility. And that is actually what ended up happening with our son is that he started getting abscesses. So we were able to ward it off until it became unsafe. And then once it becomes unsafe, then you need to act further.
All right. Let's jump away from medical for a minute. Let's talk about some of the other beekeeping things that you do. By the way, how many hives do you run?
Right now I have probably close to 30.
All at one place, or do you spread them out? And I don't think I mentioned this up front. You're in Ohio, right? In the United States? Okay.
Yes.
So are these spread out over a few different locations?
I do. I have 4 different locations. My main hub is my home where I bring in all my swarms, and then once I establish them as a healthy, thriving colony, I will move them to an out yard. And that way, if I ever bring anything in to my yard, then only a minimal amount of them are exposed. But yeah, and then this is also where I don't graft queens, but I do produce queens. I do it naturally through the hive, breaking them down and things. And so this is where the queens are mated, and then I move them to my out yards.
Can you give us a little more explanation on that? Take us really step by step through that process.
So to make my own queens, what I will usually do is I will wait for one of my strongest colonies to start showing signs of swarming behavior and developing cups. And once they have cups, or especially if they have eggs in them, then if it's a large colony, and I typically run 4 mediums for winter. I do not care for deep boxes. I use all 8-frame medium equipment because everything is interchangeable. And so I will take basically each box off as long as they all have eggs and brood. I will make sure that there is a queen cup or queen cell in each one, and I will divide that large colony into 4. In addition to that, I make sure that I have a frame feeder in there so that they have a lot of carbohydrates, and then I will put a pollen patty in as well for protein, because they cannot produce a good queen or a lot of royal jelly unless they have the protein from the pollen patty. One additional thing is when I divide them, wherever I'm placing them, I don't leave one hive in the same location that it came from. I will typically move one at least a foot or 2 feet to the right, and then the new one I'll put 2 feet or whatever to the left, and that way when the foragers are returning, they are choosing a hive to go to instead of all the foragers returning to one. Or I will take them to an out yard so that they're not so that the population stays well, because I want them to create a very good healthy queen.
I love it. We're learning a lot today. Would you be willing to share with us some kind of wild and crazy beekeeping story you've had?
So I've been thinking about this for a few days, and I'm like, oh, I know so many wild, crazy things have happened. Like one time my husband was on the end of a 50-foot ladder at the top of this very old historic building, and what we thought was just a swarm was actually a bee's building comb. So then it turned into, now he has to cut this comb off the outside of the building, carry it down this really long ladder, and on the way down, the queen was in it, and she like flies out, and he's standing there, and he can see the queen flying around. He's like, the queen is like out of the box. And I climb up the ladder, and I literally like snatched her in the air with my hand. And I was like, how did that even happen? But then we put her in the bucket, and she stayed in there with them. But it was just the process of being cut from the wall that caused her to fly out. Other than that, I mean, I have bad stories, like dropping hives on accident, trying to transport them, trying to look professional, and definitely didn't.
I think we've all done that kind of thing. This morning for me, yeah, luckily a bunch of people weren't watching, but mistakes definitely happen. Wow, I'm picturing that. That is a super tall ladder.
Yes.
And I'm impressed with your superhuman ability to catch a queen right out of the air. That is very impressive. And not squish her.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. Oh, I mean, how about that whole thing of accidentally killing your favorite queens? I mean, I've done that too.
All right, tell us a little bit more about the swarm removals that you do. Is this something that's part of your business, or you're just rescuing bees, or what's the story?
So my business is called Mueller Honeybee Rescue, and that was the whole. To be honest, I'm a mom. I'm a stay-at-home. Well, I was a stay-at-home mom, and I homeschool my kids, and so I couldn't budget-wise afford this very expensive hobby, because beekeeping is not cheap, to be honest. And so I really wanted to be a beekeeper, and I only had one empty hive, and we caught a swarm first. That was the way we became beekeepers. And then I decided I wanted to grow. We found some equipment used at an auction. We brought that home to use. And so I decided that I would start advertising free swarm removal, which free swarm removal turned into cutouts, because in the beginning I thought, oh, well, we'll just cut these bees out of the wall and now we'll have free bees. And that was quite the opposite. It's a lot of work. We ended up going down to Mississippi and training under some really good, well-known people. I don't know if you're familiar with JP the Bee Man or Yappy, but they both trained me and my husband on how to do cutouts. And then we came back up to Ohio and we started, zero experience other than doing them down there with them. We came up here and I started a whole business like, oh, hey, now I am a cutout professional. It's kind of what I thought. We did, oh gosh, probably over 100 cutouts over several years. And it just, once we had our last child, I decided like, it's too much to do. But now, yes, we do swarm removal, or I do. I am the owner of the company and I do pretty much everything. Sometimes I drag kids with me, but they don't like to be in the car with stinging insects. I go out, like I was just at a swarm before this phone call. I ran 30 minutes, which I usually don't drive that far, but I'm trying to get bees in my mother-in-law's hives, which are technically mine. So this swarm was near her house, and I went to shake them in the box, and when I did so, they dispersed into the air and flew away. And I was like, wow, what a waste of an hour of my life. So
That's part of the fun of it, isn't it?
yeah, I don't know about fun, but bees teach me. They teach me patience, they teach me appreciation, and I am thankful for at least those experiences.
But that's super unusual. I mean, usually when you shake them from a branch, they just fall as if they can't fly. A few will start flying, but in general, they fall down in your box or whatever you have for them to land in. Why do you think they just took off?
Now, what happened was they actually arrived yesterday early evening, and the people didn't call until today. And by the time I got to it, it was almost noon, and so it was warming up. And I think that they were ready to move on. They were about to, and I just helped them along a little bit sooner than what they anticipated. But yeah, they flew right off the branch and flew away. I've only ever had that happen one other time. Typically, it's a matter of when they fly away, it's because I'm not there in enough time. I can't get there, or by the time I get there, they fly away. It is very rare for them to fly away while I'm trying to collect them.
Do you also use swarm traps?
I don't so much. I really should, and I don't. But I have them. I have them sitting outside next to all of my other equipment. It's just that I have so many other things going on. I really wish that someone could just come take my swarm traps and hang them up for me, and then I will go pull them down. But time is of the essence for me. I have 4 children, and I'm just always busy. Plus, I'm doing full-time my doctorate, and I have 2 part-time jobs, plus run my company and help my husband with his company. And so, yeah, I'm burning the candle at multiple ends.
Well, based on all of that, I really, really appreciate you taking the time today to meet with us because we've all been able to learn something from this. And just as a wrap up, is there any piece of advice that you'd like to share or just why does Emily love bees?
Oh man, why do I love bees? It's like I connect with them like the crazy cat lady. I'm the crazy bee lady. Like I connect with them on a level that I cannot explain. Somebody was here yesterday and they were observing my hives and they said, do your hives recognize you? And I said, I don't think that they recognize me, but they can feel my energy and that I'm not afraid of them because I can, like, we were standing there and all of a sudden a bee came up to the one lady's head and started circling her head. And I put my hand out and I told the bee, like I stopped like in its way, like so that it had to like reroute. And I said, stop it. And then like the bee just disappeared and flew away. And so, like that most people aren't willing to do that, aren't willing to like risk getting stung to tell a bee to stop acting like that. But like when I mow by them, they don't irritate me. I talk to them, which, I not bad words sometimes, but I love bees. I love bees on a level I never thought could even be possible. And I just really appreciate what it can do for the central nervous system in particular, helping center and calm people in general, but me, myself. I grew up in a very traumatic way, and I carried a lot of that into adulthood. And being able to get into beehives puts you on this meditational state and this calming center that I never could obtain prior to beekeeping. And so it has changed my entire life, and it just is a really, truly amazing experience.
Thanks again for joining us on Bee Love Beekeeping presented by Mann. Another big thank you goes to Vita Bee Health for their support. Vita's Varroa Control range of products includes Apistan, Epiguard, and now Varoxan, extended release oxalic acid strips. Hey, thanks a lot, guys. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to and follow the show, tell your friends about it, and click on over to belovebeekeeping.com to sign up for our free newsletter. If you have a guest suggestion or topic you'd like discussed on the show, shoot me an email, eric@belovebeekeeping.com. And remember, if you're not just in it for the honey or the money, you're in it for the love. See you next week.